How did this woman, stranded completely alone without weapons, radio communication, emergency supplies, functional thermal gear, or any form of external emergency coordination? After her snowmobile failed without warning in total whiteout conditions 14 miles from the nearest human settlement and 30 miles from the nearest accessible road, with ambient temperatures already registering below -70 degrees Celsius and still falling, identify, select, climb, engineer, and fully fortify a single living Siberian larch tree into a multi-platform, thermodynamically insulated, structurally load-bearing, elevated survival fort, capable of sustaining human core temperature above the critical hypothermic collapse threshold during sustained ambient ground-level conditions of -70 degrees Celsius, while a pack of 14 adult Siberian wolves, with documented regional territorial aggression records, maintained a continuous and unbroken perimeter encirclement at ground level. Beneath her position, for 72 consecutive uninterrupted hours, through complete darkness and an active blizzard, a structure she designed, calculated, and physically assembled, entirely in total darkness, using only a single fixed-blade knife, 40 feet of standard paracord, her own outer clothing layers, stripped and repurposed as radiant heat retention and wind barrier panels, green larch boughs, harvested and woven by hand into a multi-layer compressed insulation barrier, birch bark, stripped, processed, and shaped into a directional wind deflection shell, precisely oriented against the dominant prevailing thermal draft, and a complete working knowledge of canid pack behavioral psychology and attack commitment thresholds, arboreal load distribution mechanics under dynamic asymmetric human body weight, passive convective and radiant heat loss, mitigation in sub-zero elevated conditions, and human caloric conservation and core temperature maintenance strategy under prolonged, static physical exposure at extreme negative temperatures. Knowledge she had never formally studied, never laboratory tested, and never expected to need until the exact moment. Her life depended entirely upon it. A multi-level platform system, incorporating a primary weight-bearing horizontal brace, engineered to distribute asymmetric dynamic human load across 3 independent lateral branch forks, without producing the resonant oscillation frequency that would compromise her grip security in wind gusts independently measured to have exceeded 40 miles per hour at her elevation, a secondary thermal enclosure from densely compressed bough and bark layers, with an insulation depth calculated to reduce convective heat extraction to below the threshold of metabolic heat generation, at complete physical rest and zero caloric intake, a tertiary directional wind baffle anchored to the upwind fork face. Using paracord in a tensile strength cross-pattern lashing geometry derived from the same mechanical principles applied in suspension, bridge deck stabilization, and a ground-level deterrence perimeter, assembled from harvested deadfall and stripped branch barriers with olfactory deterrent placement, calibrated against the known approach and retreat threshold distances of a wolf pack, operating in full active pack hunt and territorial behavioral mode, while wilderness survival instructors with combined field experience. Exceeding 200 years, cold climate structural arborists, applied behavioral ecologists, specializing in Siberian wolfpack dynamics, military Arctic survival and evasion training program directors, biomechanical engineers studying improvised elevated load-bearing platform construction under extreme stress, and thermodynamic researchers modeling passive human heat retention in sub-zero. Arboreal environments are now formally and independently analyzing her fully reconstructed platform, design and build sequence as the most structurally sound, thermally efficient, behaviorally calibrated, and biologically survivable improvised elevated emergency shelter, ever documented under real active predator threat field conditions at -70 degrees Celsius, proving that the human brain, operating under pure existential survival pressure, stripped of every tool, every resource, every institutional system, and every safety net, with 14 wolves circling silently beneath it in -70-degree blizzard, darkness and falling temperatures and zero possibility of morning rescue, remains the most sophisticated, most thermally adaptive and most structurally creative survival engineering system ever documented on this planet. And that, sometimes the only real difference between living until morning and not is whether you can look at a single tree in total darkness, at -70 degrees, with a wolf pack circling silently below you and still see, with perfect clarity, zero panic and absolute precision, exactly what that tree is willing to.